Okay, so we will look at forms now. Let's try to see what the homework assignment is. So what you need to create for the homework is this, I think it's like a checkout flow. You have to imagine you are creating the sign up flow for a website that finds special deals on clothes, handbags, and accessories based on users' personal preferences. Wow. Okay. That sounds pretty crazy. So it has 4 steps, right? There are wireframes for each step. And it says, so this is the first step, right? And if you have clicked that you want another address than the shipping address, then there is a, sorry, that it shouldn't use your address as the shipping address, then it will also show. So this is still step 1 with some more content, and this is step 2 with, yes, you need to sign up and how often you want, and then look at, there's also a progress bar that shows how far you've come. So step 3, you want to select whatever you are interested in, and then step 4, you need to pay. So payment.
That's 3?
No, that's step 4. Yeah, I don't know why it says next step. I think it should probably say submit.
You choose the items and then you do it.
I think I don't understand why there is a payment step, because you're just, does it cost money for you to get offers? Maybe. Apparently, it costs you money to get offers.
Yes.
So it's, in my opinion, it's a bit weird scenario, but fine. So how do you feel when you see this? Are you a bit overwhelmed, or think it's cool?
It's cool.
It's cool? Okay. Okay, so let's try to make a plan. How would you get started? What's the very first? So you have all of these steps. What are those steps? Are they, how do you get from step 1 to step 2?
The different pages.
Yeah, very good. So an HTML page for each step? Yeah? Okay.
Transition.
And what?
Transition.
Yeah, well, transitions are not an option in this case, because every time you do a page refresh, then you don't really, you are not changing the state. You are not going from state 1 to state 2, you're going from page 1 to page 2. So that's...
Isn't like this step A, 1A and 1B?
Yeah, you could use, yes, that's very true. So for example, here, if you're saying use the same address as the shipping address, if you check that one, so you shouldn't use the same address. So for this part to open, that could be a transition, because you are still on the same page, right? But something opens. So yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so let's try to look at what form elements we have here. What are form elements on this page? Can you name a few?
Form elements?
Yeah, so for example, the first name.
Yeah, so
Input.
Yeah, that's an input.
text.
Yeah, text input fields. And then what is that one? It's yeah, I think it's probably a select box, right? Then we have some more input fields. What is that one?
Checkbox.
That's a checkbox, yeah. Then some more of the same. What is the long one?
Yeah,
Text.
missing.
It's a message. Yeah, it's a text area. Yeah, it's called a text area. Okay. What about step 2?
And buttons also.
Yeah, true. That's true. That's I guess that could be a submit button. Yeah. So what are these? Yeah, if you only can choose one of them, right? Then it is radio buttons. If you can select all of them or none of them. So if it's multiple choice, then it's what is it?
Check.
Then it's a checkbox, yeah. What does the star mean? The asterisk, you know?
Mandatory requirement.
It's required, yeah. So that is also something that HTML forms can. Like that's an attribute you can specify. Should we try to just create some example inputs?
Yes.
Okay. I think I will open a code pen because then I can link to it in Slack. So, do you know what the HTML element is called? If, let's say, what we want to do is this one. What would I need to do?
Define form.
Yeah, yes, yeah, okay, we can do a form, yes.
So we say input.
And you say input. Mm-hmm. Type.
Text.
Yeah, type text. Okay. So that's there. Name. Okay. So we can say the first name, yeah. How should I write it? Two words like this, or
dash. First dash name.
yeah. Yeah, you could do like this. You could also do it like this. The name is actually not used other than for data transmission. So if you want some text in here, right, it has a placeholder attribute that you can use to signify what sort of input you expect. So for example, you could say, for example, John Doe, right? That's like the placeholder, and then that disappears when you write something. Yeah. You can also add value. Value is whatever gets sent by the form within the input field. So that, in my case, the value will be my name, right? So that's actually something you can select and delete. That's the value that will get filled in when you type in the input field. So for example, if I inspect this page, so if I inspect the input, then it will, I'm not sure if you can probably only see it in JavaScript. So for example, I think you can do this. So now in JavaScript I have created a variable that's called temp1. So if I say temp1 dot value, that will be whatever is in there. So if it has nothing and then I select it again, then the value will be just a quotation marks, an empty string. It's called a string is whatever is text. So even though it has a placeholder, it has no value. So when you send the form, it will be sent as an empty input field. Okay, sorry, you can't really see anything, can you? When it's on over there. No. Who's this one I want to exit? Where is this one? Can you see it there? Sort of. Let me know if you can see what I'm doing. Okay? Okay, so is that clear what the difference between the value and the placeholder is?
Yeah.
So the placeholder is whatever is in there before you type something. And it's not always you have a placeholder. But what would you use to explain to the user what this field is? Like for example, if you want to tell the user this is where you should write your first name. You know what that HTML element is called? Label? It's called a label, yeah. So if I say label, we'll come back to that one. So we just say first name. then I know that I need to write. Oh, that's actually not Doe, just John. Okay. Yeah. So I know what I need to write. A label can be connected to an input field with the for attribute. And you do that by specifying an ID on the input field. I know that I told you guys that you should avoid using IDs.
Yeah.
That is an exception. With input fields, you use IDs, but you don't use them to style with. You use them to connect to the label. So, for example, in here, if in here I say this is the first name, and this is called camel casing. When I start with a small letter, and then each word is separated by a capital letter, that's called camel casing. So it's like the camels. Great, you get it. So this is used in JavaScript, for example. You can also separate by a dash, but I think it's more normal to separate by camel casing. Okay, so we'll put it in the for. So the ID of the input, if it's the same as the for of the label, then my label is connected to the input, and I know that by clicking on the label will select my input. So that is also, I will show you an example later where it makes really, really good sense to connect these two. But now I sort of feel like if I have multiple input fields, right? For example, I have another one for last name. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of the name right now because it's not necessary for us. We just do the necessary things right now. So, okay. Oh. Not saved like that, saved like this. Great, thank you. So you see that now I have two input fields, but my HTML is kind of getting messy because I would really prefer if everything that belonged together, like these two, were also wrapped in a parent. So I'm allowed to do that. And whenever I'm in doubt about what best practices are for form elements, I will go to a website called Get Bootstrap. Do you know Bootstrap? So Bootstrap is sort of like a framework. It's sort of like a library with a lot of front-end components. So some companies, especially in like bit olden days, if they didn't have any front-end developers because they only had some real, they would call back-end developers, they wouldn't really care about what the front-end was like. So this was sort of like a shortcut for them because there are a lot of components in here. I think it's in under examples maybe. No. Documentation? Yeah, it's under documentation. And then components. They have all of these different components. They have buttons. They have drop downs. Okay, I'm not sure. Collapses. They have all of these different front-end components. And it's super useful for new beginners because you can see what they do and try to everything that they do is accessible, it's semantic, it's done right, but I would never use it for my own website because like with WordPress it's too rigid. You cannot customize it the way you want to, but it is very good to see, like for example, if you are in doubt about how to create some form elements that are completely correct, right? Then you can go in here and and get an idea. So for example, if we look at how Bootstrap does it. So for each form element, they create a div where they say this is a form group, and then the label will be in there, the input will be in there, and if they have some helper text, that will also be in there. Also, if they have some error message, I'm pretty sure they will load it in there. So everything that is connected for or related for one input field or one checkbox or one radio group or whatever, they will be in one div. So let's try to do the same in our example. I'm gonna create a div. I can call it the same as they did. I can call it form group. Okay? Because as you can see, what does this layout tell you about the display type of labels and input fields? Are they block level or inline? Yeah, because they are just getting glued to each other, right? So I also want them to be block. Like, it's fine that they are next to each other, but I want each input field to start on a new line, right? Then I can do this, right?
Yeah.
So if I, oh, I'm still zoomed in. So if I clean up my HTML, so now you see that there is one div. Can you see anything? There is one div with my first input field, and there is another div for my second input field. Okay? So there are, if we try to inspect the code here. Okay, so this input field is of type text, but there are a lot of different types, and what type does, it will tell your browser or your device what sort of information is expected. So for example, for a name, text is perfect. But for example, if you want a phone number, right? Then it's not that suitable. Yeah, number, that could be one. Number is also a type, but I'm not sure if number allows plus, the plus that you use on for your country code, for example. So there is actually a type that is created specifically for phone numbers, which is called tel. And this type of the input field is so important that it will, for example, if you write the type tel for an input, it will grab the correct keyboard for your phone when you're looking at the website on your phone. So for a type tel, it will grab that keyboard type. For type text, it will grab the one where you write normal text. There is also one called type email, I think. Yeah, let's say input types. So these are all, we should probably go on the Mozilla. This one. So the input types, these are all the input types. So there's input type button, checkbox, color, date, email. So the email will also load the keyboard on your telephone that will have the what's it called, the snabelay, the at the right place, all that. So that's really smart. But that's not the only function of type. It is also used for HTML validation. So if I have, let's say I also want to send this form, right? So I want, how do I send it? What do I need?
Send something.
Yeah, what is it that I can click? Yeah, a button. And then there is also a type attribute for button where you can, Yeah, exactly. When you can specify this is the submit button. So I can say submit form. Great. Okay, super. So if I click on the submit, then it will reload the page because it doesn't have an action, but it's submitting. So let's say that I want the first name to be required, right?
The star.
Yeah. Well, I can add the star. I can add the star, but that will not help. It will not make it required. The-
You can write required.
Yeah, exactly. You can. There is an attribute that is called required. So if you set that, then now your first name is required. So that means that if I want to submit the form, then I will get an error from my browser. I have not done anything, but it will get the correct language for the language that I use on my browser, and it will if I was using Danish, it would be showing this information in Danish actually, telling me that, oh, this is actually a required field, you need to fill it in. Great, so I filled it in. Now the form will submit because it's correct. So if we let's try this with the email type. So we just say email. We don't actually need the placeholder here. We say email. So the type, what should the type be? Can you remember? Email. Okay, so we go over here, email, great. Oh, and we also need to say if we want this, for everyone to fill this in, what do we need to say? Required. Great. So now this is a required field. We can add a star to signal it to our users. Great. So let's say I want to try to send the form. Oh, I'm having an error in the first one, so it will show me an error for the first one. Now I try to send, oh, I also have an error here. Okay, well, I try to type something, and without even trying to submit again, it will show me the new type of error, which, again, I didn't do anything. It knows it by itself because it is set to type email, that this is not the correct format for an email. You need the add. Yeah, exactly. So now if I try to submit, it will. So you get so much functionality just from the browser without you needing to do anything if you specify the type correctly. That's super important. Okay, let's do a short exercise. I want you guys to open Visual Studio Code. Let's do this part together so it goes a bit faster. I want you guys to have a new window. So this is what you see on Visual Studio Code. If you are in a project, then you can click on File, New Window. So you see this new screen. And yours is probably black. I set it to white because it's easier to see on the projector. Do you all see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Is there anyone who doesn't?
I don't have it.
Hmm?
I don't have it.
It's in flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see it? Yeah? Okay. So if you are there, are you there? Well?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I want you to say new or open folder. Yeah? And then wherever you normally work with Hack Your Future stuff, I want you to create a folder called Form Exercise. Yeah?
Call it what?
Form Exercise. And then open that folder. So Visual Studio opens in that folder. Okay? So this is just an empty folder. Mm-hmm. Do you all see what I see?
Yes.
So I have to save it here.
Yeah, just click on the folder and then red mark it. Yes. So now you see the same. Now you can create folders and files in there. Do you manage? What is this? Your computer? Try open folder. And then where do you normally work? Where do you have your stuff? Desktop? Yeah. Future, perfect. And then you can, if you click on that one, then you can create a folder called form exercise. Yeah, the form is fine. That's also fine. So just create. No, sorry, it's with the name. So you write the name. Yeah, and then click on create. Yes, and okay. Okay. So now, if you hover over there, you see that you can also create files in here. You get it? So open folder. Oh, you are there. Okay. So.
We make a new file.
Yeah, please, all of you make a new file called index.html.
I have index HTML.
Yeah?
I
You have one?
Yeah, I have the index HTML, so directly I can create index HTML. I'm done.
No, that's fine. Then you can also call it that. Is it fine? Yeah. Are you all there?
Yes.
Okay. So let's create the regular head of the file.
Yeah, that didn't work. Like how?
We can just do it together. Can you remember what's on that page? An HTML page? Yeah, the doc type. Is it like this? Doc type, HTML, like that? And then a head. Do I have something before the head? HTML. Yeah, language is it's fine to specify, but you don't absolutely need to. Yeah. So you have the head, and then what else do you have? No, after the head. Yeah. Body. Right. And so what do you have in the head? Only give me the absolute necessary ones. Title. Cool. So we call it form exercise. Okay. I guess we can also take this. I guess it's good to take those two. Those two meta tags are also good to have. So we'll take those. Okay, so do you all have this?
Yes.
Yeah, do you know how to open it in your browser? Do you know how?
Yeah.
Is there one called debug? Well,
Open in terminal or something?
no, but you can just, what I normally do is reveal in Finder or reveal in File Explorer, and then I right click on that and say open with Google Chrome. and then I have the website. So if I write something in the body, like an H1, hello, just so I can see that it works. Do you all have it? So try to write something in the body, just like a H1 or something.
I think it's called email.
Real?
Yeah.
Ah, nice. I don't know if I have that.
It's just why it doesn't finish the tag. I have to finish the tag by myself.
Oh yeah, reveal in, yes, yeah, that's true.
What is that?
Well, that's good. And then you just write something, hello. Mhm. Can you tell how per reveal
Right
in
click
store?
and the difference. Right click. Shortcuts.
Maar er is een shortcut dat. Shortcut is.
Double click.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How we auto-fill all these templates?
Yeah. So if you have created them, just try to write HTML.
Fijn.
Yes.
Oké. Damn.
And then
Wel خمسة.
and then you can just do you know how to open it in Chrome?
In Chrome. Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah, you just need to save first. You just need to write something in the body so you can see that it actually works.
Okay.
Cool. And then save. You just you don't click anywhere. Just Control S. Is that's much faster. Alright. And then you can open it. Right.
Click.
Second.
Right click.
Yips. Perfect.
Actually, it was in the first team.
HTML خمسة.
You have
think
to
it's-
run from the project.
Yeah, you need to navigate to it.
HTML of خمسة.
Can I show you something? Try to write HTML. HTML. Yeah. The second one. Try to.
فياخذ نرجع باص.
This one. Yeah.
ليش من
Then it will do it for you. Hmm? And then just try to write something in the body, just whatever. Just write something in the body so you can open it in a file. Okay, so you have it all?
Yeah.
All of you? Okay, so what I would like you to do now is to create two input fields. I'm just gonna do it here. So I would like you to create an input field, a name field, an email field, and a phone field. And these three I would like you to do.
Name.
So I remove this.
Name, email, phone. These three I would like you to create. Like we did, I would like you to have an input field, a label, and I would like these three fields to be under each other. Name, email, and phone. Okay? And you have 10 minutes because we have so much to cover still. Okay? Stop the recording.